Hi everyone, welcome back to Tech Talk, a podcast where Amit and I we talk about various technology related topic. This week we're going to talk about a very interesting topic, well, as usual. But today's topic is a little bit different, and I think the audience is going to get quite intrigued with this topic. It's what we're calling digital divide. And this is a topic which looks into the division that is occurring in terms of accessibility of digital products, in terms of internet, computing altogether. And this divide is as we are advancing in technology as, mankind, humankind, we are thinking that, more and more people are having access and they have, our society is becoming more and more meritocratic by day. But actually, with research and, after looking into it a little bit more in detail, we see that there is still division based on financial situation, based on accessibility. And this is something that we want to be aware of and be cautious of, and also work towards not having a digital divide based on the things that shouldn't be a reason for different levels of access of information. So this is actually a very cool topic and a very important topic to be aware of, and we would like our audience to be knowledgeable on this, so you guys can be more proactive on accessing internet or any digital products, and also help others, so everyone can have a more sort of distributed internet for everyone. So yeah, without further ado, let's start talking about it. Amit, thank you for coming up with this topic. Give us a little bit of introduction of what it is.
Thanks again, Rinat, and thanks again. I mean, you've given a good introduction, but the reason I selected this topic is because I was watching a video while writing something for my newsletter, and this was about Starlink, and the lady in the video just mentioned something called as digital divide. So I googled it, and then I realized, okay, it's a very relevant topic which people don't think of because we live in cities. So people who are watching the podcast or even listening to it, they may have access to a smartphone, they have access to high speed internet. Internet itself is a huge thing, and they are listening to us on maybe Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Google Podcasts, etc. So they are people who have access to all these technologies, but there are many other people who don't have access to these technologies, and that's what the digital divide is. Like you have wealth inequality, you have digital inequality. So not all people have access to the same level of digital infrastructure at the same cost. So if, say for example, so digital divide. So digital means anything that's in the internet, over the internet, on your smartphone, on your computer, anything which is in that format. Then it's called digital. And then the divide. So the divide happens because, say for example, you have a high speed internet at your home which is about say 200 mbps, and you pay about 20 pounds per month. Say for example, you do that. Now if you go outskirts in the countryside in the UK, someone is getting maybe 5 mbps and they still pay 20 pounds. So for them, they're getting a low speed but at the same cost. So that's not fair. So it means that they'll not be able to make a, I mean, they might be able to make a good Zoom call, but then if there are too many people in the house who are using the internet at the same time, then there is a, what do you say, there is a loss in quality. Okay, so there is a loss in quality, and that is not acceptable, but people have to live with it because they don't have any other option. So that's with respect to geography, because they are where they are, and the infrastructure is just not available because they are very far. The companies that provide the internet services, they don't have a, what do you say, a business case or a economic case to justify the amount of spending that they have to do on the infrastructure that can provide internet just to a few people in a small village or a town. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is about education. So I mean, we take technology for granted. because we have grown up with it. We have lived with it. We see it on a daily basis. We work in that industry, so we take it for granted. But a couple of generations just before us, they are not familiar with it because they have never used it. They are aware that okay, there is a smartphone, there is internet, and they have to learn how to use it. But there are many people who can't, and it's very difficult for them to access services. Most of the government services in the UK can be accessed using the internet. So you just go to a website, you apply for a application or a form, you apply for taxes, you apply for your pension, you apply, etc., etc. Many other services, social services, and you get those benefits. But there are people who can't, so they have to go to, say, a library or to the council, and then ask someone to help them to get those access. So that's with respect to the education aspect of it. Then there's just a social aspect or the economic aspect. Like I and you, we work in the IT industry. We get reasonably good pay, but there are people who work, say, in the service industry. So there are people who are helping out as a salesperson. They are doing delivery on a regular basis, and then there are many other people in this service industry that just can't afford high speed internet. They can afford internet but not high speed. So then there is that divide as well. So there are these various factors that are causing people to use the internet but not at its like not at its peak potential. like like, say for example, we are recording this over a Zoom call. So you and I, we have good quality video, we have good quality audio, there is no lag, there is no jitter, we can hear each other clearly, we can see each other clearly, and that is because we have good internet. I have many other devices already connected. I have my smartphone connected, my smart home devices connected, they are all using the internet, and still the speed is good, and there is no lag. So that's what is the digital divide all about.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you sort of first mentioned this, and that really opened my eyes in so many ways, because it's important not only politically but also a socially important topic to talk about and be aware of. And I mean, I think in the past, in different episode of our podcast, even I said, "Oh, nowadays everyone has a smartphone." Talking about it, but obviously, while this is something that we're taking it for granted and we're thinking everyone has a smartphone, but actually, if you really look at the statistics globally, not everyone has a smartphone, and a smartphone enables you to get information quickly in a way that you can use it for whatever project you're working on, to a degree that you can't, you just simply can't. Whether you want to be educated, whether you want to get some information to do a physical project on, whatever you're doing, if you have or don't have a smartphone, that makes a big difference. And then that's just one tier. You could probably put different tiers of access of technology, right? So having a smartphone or a computer or a laptop is just the first part, and then you have to have internet, and then you can have internet, but then you might not have good enough speed to be really productive. As you just mentioned, our current scenario, we're having a Zoom call, we are recording it, etc., etc. And the fact that we are not having to be sort of obstructed with difficult connections, we can like flawlessly talk and not have to worry about it. And that is a hindrance to productivity for people who doesn't have this. So there are so many ways and so many tiers of accessibility of digital products, and then that affects your productivity. And as a chain reaction, it also affects how successful you can become in this more and more digital world. And this is something we want to be aware of. And one of the things I am really passionate about technology, because what I thought was it's equalizing everyone. It's more distributed. Everyone else has the access to internet and all the information available to us as humankinds, and anyone can, there is no sort of gatekeeping of information. Whatever you want to achieve or do in life, you can just maybe go on YouTube and search for a step-by-step guide, and someone already done it and documented it. But actually, it's not accessible to everyone. Someone can't afford a laptop or a smartphone, or even if they can, they have to pay like megabytes per megabytes for internet access, which is not a lot of the times financially feasible. Or even if they can pay, it's not speedy enough, so they can be really productive with the project that they're working on. So this is actually massively important on a social scale, political scale, and overall for human progress. We want to make sure that everyone has more and more access to technology. I mean, last week we talked about Chat GPT, which is one of the cutting edge topics in current days. But it's making a lot of work a lot easier, augmenting your performance, etc., etc. But if you don't have access to it, then how would you take advantage to it? And a small number of people do have. I mean, you think, as an audience, I would imagine you guys have access to internet anyway, but you're thinking that, okay, we all have access to Chat GPT, it's all, or chat, not just Chat GPT, but anything, YouTube, education sites, etc., etc. And we can all progress and stuff. But actually, there is a quite a significant portion of people in the world who doesn't have access to it. So it is very unfair to them. Whereas you could potentially go to Google or an AI module and get your CV, your cover letter written very professionally to the highest of standards, there is someone else in the world applying for the same job who has to write, with who has to write um, you know, tedious cover letters, tailor-made for each job application. So yeah, we want to make sure or be aware of and do everything we can to bridge this gap between this different levels of access, and not have the digital divide that it currently is happening in the world.
Absolutely, Rinat. I think that is very important because a lot of people are not able to utilize the opportunities that are possible through the internet, just because it's difficult for them. But when we talk about digital divide, see, even if people have access to smartphones, they may not have access to high-speed internet. Even if they have access to high-speed internet, they may not know how to use the devices. And even if they know how to use the devices, some people are disabled, so they cannot actually use the internet that the way the internet is supposed to be used, because say I am deaf, so I can't hear much, so I want to go and watch a YouTube video and learn from it, but there are no subtitles. But now there are subtitles, so I can use it. And say, for example, I am blind and I want to use the internet, but there are no audio descriptions. But now there are audio descriptions, so I can actually go through the text on a web page, and I can understand what's written, and I can absorb the information and do something about it. So those are the ways in which the digital divide is being addressed, and that's something called as digital inclusion. Like, how do you include everyone in the world to use these services that are available or through the internet? And these are like two interconnected topics. And one of the reasons that the digital divide occurs is simply because of economics. As I mentioned, infrastructure. So say, for example, we are in the US. The US is a huge country, or say Russia. It's a huge country, and you have pockets of very high density densely populated areas, and then you have pockets where are very low density. So even in the UK it's the same. So where you have high density, you have more people, so more money, more opportunities, more business. So there is an incentive for companies to invest in infrastructure, because they can invest in the infrastructure and they can earn more money, because they don't have to invest in infrastructure over a large area. Now, suppose they have to go and provide the same services to a very small, very less densely populated area, somewhere far away, where the population is say 1,000 people or 2,000 people. Now they know that they have to spend £1 million or $1 million to build the infrastructure, but only 1,000 people will use. So, in order for them to recoup their investment, what they do is they price the services at a very high cost, or it just doesn't make business sense for them. until unless there is a government incentive which will say that okay, fine, the government is providing me incentive, so I can use that and I can then provide benefits to the population. But that doesn't happen. So you have this geographical problem, and the way to address these things is through something like a Starlink, uh, uh, an internet connection that's available everywhere, no matter where you are. It's available even in remote places at the top of, say, Mount Everest. In the if you're in an RV, if you are mobile, you can still use it. So it's an equalizer, but of course it's still not very cheap, so not everyone can afford it. But when it comes to, say, opportunities, if I'm not on the internet, I don't have access to information, I lose out on business. But if I have internet, then I have those opportunities, so I can increase my business. So now it's like an investment. So people are now investing in such technologies because that will help them to get on the internet and start selling their services. So it's a amazing time to be alive, to experience all these things that are happening.
Absolutely, and to be honest, this is a like a double-edged sword in a way, because we absolutely welcome anything that sort of reduces the digital division, and satellite internet system is one of them, and that makes internet available for everyone. But then again, obviously, there is the question of cost. Starlink, as far as I know, is actually quite expensive. But again, the companies that are making this fully distributed internet system available, they are some of the really large corporate companies who are obviously, taking the largest market share. So it's a double-edged sword in a way that large corporate companies are getting benefited, but then again they are also bringing internet as a well distributed to everyone. So that is a benefit, but I don't know how happy I want to be on this progress. But at least the good part is that rather than a monopoly, if Starlink was the only one who was supplying this, then it would have been a monopoly, which would be worst for consumers. It is becoming an oligopoly, which is few big players competing for the customers, and that's the best for consumers. And I think Virgin Atlantic is also is it Virgin Atlantic, or
I think
it's
Amazon is trying, and there
Amazon,
is,
and then Richard Branson's company. I thought it was
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe we
but
can
yeah,
do some research. But
a few.
Starlink is definitely, and then there is Amazon, Jeff Bezos. There is some company called OneWeb. I don't know if it is related to Amazon, but I think it's related to Europe, European constellation. But yeah, so these are the companies that are actually trying to um, build a constellation of satellites that can provide internet access to almost everyone in the world. But of course, I mean, if these are competing companies, then you have to look at which services are better, which services are globally available, and which services are cheap. So you have to
Yeah,
consider all that.
absolutely. But the key thing is the fact that they are competing, the big companies are competing against each other. That actually works out quite well for consumers. So that's the good thing. Speaking of this, so this is a like a access problem that is being solved, which is a really good thing, access to internet. But then again, you mentioned earlier about accessibility, like, not everyone has all the accessibility options right now. And, we are being digitally inclusive as much as possible. And Amit and I, we're both very passionate about digital inclusion. And I would urge the audience to go back, listen to one of our earlier episodes called A11Y project. We had a guest appearance on that from that project as well. That was actually quite an informative project, and informative episode to understand the digital accesses and what is being done to include everyone in the digital world. And it is very important. And we are, as you guys would know, the regular listeners, that we have scripts. So we have visual translation, as well as it is available as many ways as possible. So that's a good example of what should be happening. So it's everyone can sort of enjoy all the digital content that are available and make use of it, sometimes just to, be informed, be educated, or get that information to put into practice. Whatever you want to do, you need to have these informations available to hand without much difficulty. So it's equal for everyone. And that's what we're working towards. But I feel like this is something that is an eye-opener topic for everyone to be aware of, including our audience, to support and also promote as much as possible.
I think one of the things that we always talk about when we talk about accessibility is the disability and the other parts. But one key thing that we miss out is the spoken language. Um, we record this podcast in English because English is a global language, and most of the people in the world more or less understand English. We take it as an assumption, but the majority of the population do understand English. That's what we feel. But there are many people in the world who don't understand English, and that also causes a digital divide. Because if most of the websites are available in just one single language, then when that person tries to come onto the internet and they don't know that language, then we are excluding them, and that creates a divide. And that's what happens with people say in developing countries who don't have access to English education, who don't have access to any sort of English media, say through newspaper or through print, or through magazines or through television, even radio. So it's difficult for them to come online and then access these services because they just don't understand the language. So one of the things that you might have noticed over the last couple of years is the push from various big companies into translation services. So a lot of languages are now being put online, and there's a lot of effort being taken to make sure that the websites that are available in your region are available in the language that the population majorly speaks, and that may not be English. And that's a very good way to actually include people and reduce the divide, because that helps with more people getting on the internet. And I mean, we record this in English, our transcripts are in English, but we know that a lot of people in India, Bangladesh, Africa, they're listening to a podcast. And then I think we are missing out on people who just speak just know English. We who sorry who don't speak English. We're missing out on people who don't speak English, but there is a huge chunk who do speak English, and we are hopefully able to reach to them.
Yes, yes, absolutely. This is actually a very, very interesting and another eye-opener aspect of digital divide, because yeah, we a lot of the times we think about all the different way of including people, but again, a lot of the times I've done many web designs and worked with various web designers, and whenever it comes to making a version in different languages, it always kind of is taken as a nice to have. Let's have the website designed and make sure all the functionalities work. Those are the primary focus. And then, if possible, let's add one or two more languages so it's more accessible to people. But it shouldn't really be treated as a nice to have, but actually a must have. So it's inclusive of all different kinds of people from different regional backgrounds. And this is a really good example because various so many people in third world countries, not only they have access, some people have never had any understanding of English, and they've grown up and lived their life and currently living their life within their society, and perfectly fine within their language. And all of these languages are very rich languages and has rich literature and all the other interactions, but obviously they're not English. So they're missing out on the digital, the large world of digital literacy and all of these information education that are available in it. So we also need to, or should really, make every effort possible to create content in different languages. So yeah, within our audience, we know that a large part of our audience is from South America, Africa, Bangladesh, and India, and none of these are primarily English-speaking countries. So, if there is any interested audience who would like to sort of translate or work with us to create more inclusive content, we absolutely welcome that. And please do reach out, or take an initiative by yourself to make not just our podcast but all the other informative digital content that are available and popular. Take them and translate them, and that would also, as well as being inclusive, it would also open up a very good side project which will have, I imagine, financial benefits as well. So definitely something to think about, and always be mindful of whenever you're doing any kind of IT projects.
I think most of the big companies like Google, Amazon, Facebook, Meta, they do now a lot of translation. So if I go to India and I want to access these services, I can actually read them in Hindi or Bengali or any other Indian languages, and that's quite a powerful thing. And even on your smartphone, when you want to type something, now you can type in various languages. So it's not just that you are just bound by English. You can actually type in various languages. So that's one way to make sure that people are included and the divide is not there, because it's not about the language. Language is just a way to communicate ideas between two people, but it's all about, like, do people have the idea itself? Do people have the knowledge? And then can they work on it? And can they work towards solving a problem, etc., etc.? And that's what it's all about. Like, you learn something, and then you apply it, and then you try to solve a problem, and then we make progress. And that's how humanity has made progress over the years. And the more and more people we include in this journey towards progress, the more faster we will make that progress, because we'll have more ideas, we'll have more viewpoints, etc. And I think that is important in a global world.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. And there is so many aspects of this digital division. I was like, as soon as you brought up the topic, I kept thinking about it, and it's just so many different ways I started to realize that all of these divisions and how we are missing out on all of these new perspectives, because we there is no like thing about, oh, there is only like six different perspectives. Yeah, I mean, in physical world with like three-dimensional world we live in, there could be, you can look at one physical object from different perspective, which is limited. But when you're looking at ideas, there is no limit on different perspectives, and all of these perspectives adds value to the idea to become successful. And we are missing out on a large chunk of it because of the language barrier. And definitely do want to have, for faster human progress. I know we are progressing quite fast in the last 100 years, but we want even faster. So yeah, for that we need to include more and more people, so we have a more coherent solution to any of the problems that we have worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, yeah, that's very important. So, I mean, let's go back a bit about. I mean, we talked about digital divide. We talked about how the divide happens. It could be economic reasons, social reasons, geographical reasons, and there are various reasons. But then, how do you solve this problem? So there are these factors, and how do you then rectify that? And we spoke about it. Like, you can have infrastructure, you can have government grant that subsidizes internet for the population so that they can get access to it. You can have digital literacy programs where people get education. So there are in UK Council, if sorry, in London councils, if you go to get education about, say, how to use a computer, how to use Microsoft Excel, Word, etc., you can get a decent course, and you can use that to then start using the internet. So these kind of courses are available. So the digital literacy programs, the infrastructure, the grants and subsidization. I think these are ways to reduce the digital divide. Of course, the infrastructure is the key thing. I mean, everything that we know of on the internet is built on some kind of infrastructure, physical infrastructure or digital infrastructure. If you look at Google or Amazon, they are very big companies, but they provide a platform to host different kind of services on their systems. Say for example, Amazon is a big a company that sells goods, different types of goods, but they provide a marketplace so people can come to their marketplace. It's like a shopping mall. I have a very big shopping mall, and then I just want to open a store in that shopping mall. And then once I open the store, because a lot of people are coming to my shopping mall, then they will come to the store, by hook or crook or whatever reasons, and then I will get more footfalls, and through that more footfall I'll get more revenue. So that's why people want to get on Amazon. And the same with Google. Google provides the search infrastructure. They provide the email. Most of the most popular email platform is Gmail. The most popular browser is Google Chrome, and the most popular search engine is Google. So they provide an infrastructure which people use, and through that infrastructure they sell advertisements, they sell many other things. So I think the key is the infrastructure. So if you provide an infrastructure that is accessible to everyone, then you start including everyone. Of course, what you do with the infrastructure, how do you charge for it, that's a different thing, but that part is very crucial. So same with the digital divide. When we have to provide a physical infrastructure, companies have to invest a lot of money in cables, in wires, in fiber optics, in the big towers, etc. Most of the companies are not incentivized to do that until unless they're making a huge amount of money. So then that's where the government subsidies come. But in order to bypass all that, then you have satellite constellations like Starlink that can jump over this, take a leap, and just change the game altogether, because no one thought about providing. I mean, I'm sure people would have thought, but the latency was quite high, the speeds were not enough. But now you can get good speeds with low latency. Latency means how much time does it take for the request to go and for you to receive a response. If it takes a lot of time for you to send something and receive something, then it's no good. And same with how fast it can come, so how much time it takes and how much data it can transmit. So those two things are quite important. And with low earth orbits, so Starlink is now on a low earth orbit which is called a Leo orbit, Leo, and because they are low earth orbits, it means they are not very far from the surface of the earth. That means that the information doesn't have to travel too far, and they can travel between 2 points on earth very quickly. And that's what Starlink is trying to do and change the game. So I think these are some of the factors through which we can reduce the digital divide and help with getting more people on board.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is actually a really good place to sort of a really good thing to think about. So, as you mentioned, the digital literacy part, governments have different incentives, and not just government, various private training organizations have incentives to train, and even the larger organizations like Google, Facebook, and other big organizations have various training programs, including I think Udemy, for very beginners of not just internet but even computing altogether. And those are, a lot of the times those are free. So please encourage your near friends and loved ones, is my urge to the audience, to become digitally literate. So that's just one aspect of digital divide. But what about the rest? In terms of what we talked about today is the accessibility of internet. As you mentioned, Starlink is solving that problem in one way, and other satellite-based internet systems. In terms of bridging that gap, there are various government incentives to bridge any kinds of gap in digital divide anyway. But what can we do more? And I would urge the audience to think about different ways you can make things accessible. Maybe you work in an IT company yourself, and maybe you're a web developer who is developing, or maybe you're in a meeting, you can promote more inclusive design and more inclusive availability of digital products, whether it be a web page or a desktop application or anything to do with digital divide, because it is quite important and we should be really aware and actively promoting this at this stage of our journey to progress as humankind. So, you know, this, you know, the more time is passed, the more um division might, you know, the more we might be divided. So if we start working on it and promoting it at this stage, we might actually tackle this problem at the very beginning, so there is no you know, even social discrimination way down in future, because, you know, obviously everything is done on the internet nowadays, so whoever has internet or don't could be the make or break for their success in life or not. So if we want a more equal society, we should be promoting digital inclusion in every way possible.
And reduce the digital divide. Yes, I think
Mhm.
it's a right thing to do because I mean, we've discussed all the points, so we don't. I don't want to repeat myself again and again. But I think it's important to be aware of this and take active steps. A lot of, I mean, the whole aim of this podcast is to educate, to make people think about certain things that are happening across the world. We take a technology and we try to talk about it and give our inputs, give our insights through our experience. And the same goes for this topic as well. So we found a topic, we thought, okay, let's talk about it, and we have given our insight. Now, using that insight, we are trying to reduce that because we have now this is like kind of education medium, so we want others to also think about it and see what they can do. Maybe write to your local councils or local governments to give better services. Maybe check if Starlink is available in your area, and if you can get subsidy to get that installed, and will that help bridge the digital divide? So there are many ways you can do that. As Rinat mentioned, do translation services. So if you know English and if you know any other language, you can help with translation. Not just our transcripts, but any other project in the world, because I'm pretty sure there are many documents that need to be translated so that people across the world can read those. So there are many things that we all can do, and if we do a bit, then that just changes the world.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a certain definite positive change in the world, and definitely encourage our audience to work on this. So yeah, this was actually a really eye-opener topic. Again, thanks again, Amit, for coming up with this. You know, the more I thought about it, the more passionate and excited I've become to talk about it. And hopefully our audience got some value from our conversation and this topic. um, and yeah, as usual, please guys, do reach out to us if you have any topic in mind that you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like to be if you'd like to see someone as a guest, or if you'd like to join us for a conversation yourself. All our contact details are in all the platforms that you can listen to us or watch us. So definitely do reach out. And yeah, hope to see you guys again next week.
Thank you everyone for listening. See you.